and there are victims. There are also another actor that is almost as bad as the perpetrator. That is the bystander who chooses to put a blind eye to the injustice. We, as ASEAN, are tired of acting as a bystander in this clear human rights violation, and for that, proud to propose. Two things I want to do in my speech. First of all, crystallization, but secondly, clashes. So what do we have in crystallizations? 2 points on this panel. We would like to crystallize, we would like about the severity of this issue, right? Opposition did a horrible job of downplaying the issue. They didn't mention it as a human rights violation, but rather as Myanmar punishing their citizens a little bit too harshly. No panels. It is not just a punishment, it is a clear human rights violation because we believe no matter what injustice you have done to the state affords you certain rights, right? Like for example, because you have paid taxes to the state, you have lived in the state, you have worked for the state and produced like food and things for the state. We believe that the state has a moral obligation to treat you at least within the confines of human decency. At least they don't punish you for like certain wrong ways, by like lobbing your head off. At least they allow you to have the safety and feel safe with their own government and not fear that they will be punished for every little crime. Right? But it is the bare minimum that the state should afford its people, for all its people have contributed to the state. This principally, right? We think it's a fair trade-off in a social contract. They never addressed it. They only said that it's what they believe in, so we shouldn't like intervene, right? But we fail to understand this, right? Because I think after World War II and after World War I, governments around the world have come to a consensus that no, you cannot just let a dangerous ideology fly. That was why like the Allies defeated the Nazis or like Japanese. Because when a dangerous ideology is allowed to fly, it's allowed to stay in the status quo, you're giving a message that it's okay to be violent, it's okay to force people into that dangerous ideology because it is acceptable in the current norms of the status quo. We believe that it is inherently unacceptable because this ideology and like what they believe in, quoting opposition, is inherently harmful and unjustified, right? Like secondly, we question the mechanism and we question how exactly their counterfactual is going to play, right? They say sanctions, but we fail to understand this chaos. If you are an ally with another country because of a certain agreement, binding agreement like ASEAN, we don't understand how you would like justifiably give sanctions to them, right? Because when you are a part of ASEAN, like Indonesia and Myanmar are both part of ASEAN, how are you exactly going to give sanctions to your allies? We don't understand how even their counterfactual can fly without first revoking Myanmar's citizenship. Because recognize powers, they already outlined to you clearly in PM that when Myanmar is still in ASEAN, that means they still get all the trade benefits, they still get the protection, and they are still seen as an ally to all member states, right? So we really don't see like the feasibility of their counterfactual, though by their case. But moving on to clashes. Two questions in this debate. The first one is about the trade-off between like the peace in ASEAN and like us revoking their membership. But secondly, on the well-being of the citizens. What do we have in the first clash? 4 things, panels. First of all, we think it's justified to like cause a little bit of like ruckus, cause a little bit of like problems in like the ASEAN community because of revoking Myanmar citizenship. Because again, we already outlined to you clearly that it's inherently injustifiable, and we think that it is the obligation of ASEAN. So if they want to play and they want to say that they are a organization that supports human rights, then they would revoke Myanmar citizenship, right? We believe this is principally in line because ASEAN cannot say that they are a good organization, yet let a war criminal be in one of their ranks, right? We don't see this, right? Like secondly, we would also like to address try to apply this in every argument panel, and you'll find that like suddenly more injustices will happen around the world. You can't infiltrate Israel. You can't punish them because then you will cause like problems around like the major countries. You can't give sanctions onto like Russia because then you will like cause problems around the major countries. We don't see how this is justification because again we believe that the principal obligation of the rights of the citizens of Myanmar has been like fully ignored by the Myanmar government, and so we believe that it's justifiable for us to finally intervene, right? Like secondly, we would like to address their point about like a second chance. That like everyone deserves a second chance. Sure. But for crimes, like cutting people's head off, not giving your citizens basic human rights, if those people are given a second chance, then like why did the Nuremberg trials happen, right? We see that criminals won't repent just because you give them like laxation. What people will actually do is that it will send a message that it's okay to continue doing this. Did you junta will see that it's okay for them to continue human rights violations because ASEAN won't do anything about this, right? But like secondly, we believe this is injustifiable because we believe that the people that has been killed by the junta deserves peace. They deserve international recognition for what has happened to them, and we believe that this does not exist on their side of the house. They do not care about the most vulnerable actors, though by their case. Like thirdly, we believe that yes, exactly the point that this is a major move in a geopolitical sphere, that it will gain attention to the cause of the plight of the Myanmar people. The countries will see this and think twice once they want to like make trade relations with Myanmar because they don't want to be labeled as like a war crime enabler, right? They already gave this to you and like PM this, PM, yet they never engaged in this. But like fourthly, we also question the feasibility of their scenario that like Myanmar will suddenly attack other ASEAN countries because they have allies, right? And they mentioned the example being Israel, which is funny because they literally just killed their case and said that Myanmar is at the same level as like Israel, which has been deemed by the UN as a war criminal. So really those are supposed to help their case at all. But like secondly, we don't really see why people would want to be allies with a war criminal because of course it would paint your country in the geopolitical sphere, and your country would like, and there are like of course other ASEAN members that you can trade with. We don't see the urgency that you have to specifically still be with Myanmar, but right. Like second clash, we think the second clash is on the well-being of the citizens. What do we have here? 2 points for this panel. Like the first point, we already told you in PM that aid in their side won't. That aid, even if Myanmar is still in ASEAN, aid won't come properly because aid will still have to go to the military junta. Because if you still think that Myanmar is still valid as an ASEAN country, then you still think that the Myanmar junta is a valid government, and thus you will give aid through the military junta and expect it to be given to the people. But we see that's not the correct status quo because obviously there is no feasibility in like the military junta, who is like currently killing their citizens, will suddenly be nice and like provide this aid that's given to ASEAN through them to their citizens, right? We don't see the feasibility of this happening, and we think this shows because we now see that like Myanmar is in a very like tragic state, right? Like secondly, even in our worst case scenario panels, where like the Myanmar people are left to fend off for themselves, we still think it's good because it's the best way to like send a message to the world about the harms of Myanmar without like actually confronting it directly, right? We are using like modern diplomacy in order to reduce the shedding of blood, but still sending a statement that this type of human rights violation does not exist in the 21st century. But at least, even if the Myanmar people are harmed on our side of the house, at least it is an economic harm which affects every form of person, right? We see this during like this Paco era, where like finally his rate of like killing and murdering was finally ended because of the economic harm that his rate brought. We believe that like this economic harm, even in the worst case, will be like a tie that will tie all the Myanmar people together to rise up against the military junta. And so we believe that we win on both of these clashes for all those reasons Paco proposed.